for, but you can have some of those nerves, like those pre-match, those pre-game nerves. I would describe that more as an accurate representation of where I'm at now.
Yeah. So those are a lot of good points, and there's a few things I want to go back to in a few moments, but one of the things that I was kind of actually, so you brought out a lot of good points, and you were talking about the fears, which I didn't even think of in that sense. But what I was actually, and it's good though, because you're making me think about a lot of other things now, and I want to follow up on them. But actually what I was referring to initially was the fears of like side effects of like shit going wrong because say you take a wrong amount of dosage, or you take a plant that's not right, really quite the plant that you thought it was, or like, are there any fears surrounding people getting sick, or people say taking ayahuasca and like going mentally to a different place and then never coming back as like the same person like they were before? I actually know people, a couple of people that say allegedly, and I believe it to be true, but allegedly smoked like laced marijuana at some point, and then they fucking went off the deep end and they were never the same mentally again. They were never that same person again because something happened upstairs, and you know, whatever really happened, who knows, but something got messed up. Are there fears, concerns, like side effects related to that type of thing, or anything like similar?
Great question. For us, that's not a fear that we have when we've accepted someone onto our retreat, because we have such a stringent safety protocol and application process that looks at trauma history, that looks at medical history. There is a diet. There is making sure that people are off medications. So there's a whole checklist and protocol that we have for the highest safety of anyone who comes to us. And then we give proper preparation help and guide preparation calls to help people prepare mentally, emotionally, physically to come to the retreat. And we've got so much content and videos on our website that we let everybody know what you're getting into. So similar to kind of if you were going to a hospital and you go into a hospital full of trained professionals, there may be a fear that, okay, you know, we're going into a hospital. It may be difficult. It may be tough. There may be a recovery period in terms of my own healing process, but we trust all of our staff that are trauma-informed and trained, and our safety procedures, all first aid trained, and have really strict safety procedures and protocols. In the very unlikely event that something that was unable for us to handle on retreat were to happen, we have like, you know, A, B, and C plans. Mm-hmm. So because of that protocol, because that we're trained, that we work in the tradition of Shipibo Curanderismo, we're working in a ceremonial setting where we monitor how much ayahuasca is given to people, working with the Icaros, which are the healing songs in the Shipibo traditional language. There are procedures and protocols and healing modalities that help moderate the level that you're in the ayahuasca. And if someone does have a really tough experience, you're not just like left on your own. That can be when people have tough experiences, is when they have perhaps this kind of like out of body experience, but they're not looked after, they're not cared for. So if someone's having a tough experience, remembering trauma, or they feel like this is too much, then we have ways of bringing people down. Mm-hmm. And then we're also there to hold your hand if we need to stay with you until you're out of the medicine, until you're in a normal level of consciousness, that you're feeling good. So no, I have complete trust in our care processes, and it's one of the most important things to us, and that we have put so much time, effort, and care into, so that people can come to Peru, to the Amazon rainforest, and feel safe and secure and have a transformative experience without the risk of being re-traumatized in that way. Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that question.
No, thank you for answering it, because that's always been in the back of my mind. Like, I would love to do this at some point, and you know, if I get brave enough one day, I probably will do it. But in the back of my mind too, it's like, you know, I've heard of bad experiences and shit happening in the past, and I know like stuff can go down. It kind of reminds me too of like skydiving. There's like a 99.99% chance when you skydive, you're going to be safe. But then you always hear of like those horror stories of the, you know, one person whose backup parachute didn't open, and then they got fucking creamed when they, you know, came down to the ground. And it does happen. But I think the safer you are, and you have, you know, plan B, plan C, plan D, these all fallback procedures, you can make it pretty damn safe. And when you have guys like you who kind of explain it all, it makes people like me feel a lot safer in the future when we want to go and try to like do something like that. I did want to follow up too on something you mentioned as far as like the healing goes. When you're in this process, you're healing different traumas, things that are popping up. Do you think it's the fact that you're like experiencing those traumas and like you mentioned before, like a breakup or something similar to that, where you're able to like fully experience that emotion and then you're able to get past it because of the feeling of it? Or do you think it's because you're in an altered state of mind where maybe you're looking at the problem differently, your mind sees it differently, and then you're able to kind of think about the solution differently, as whereas before you couldn't really think that way?
Are you sure you've not drank ayahuasca? Because it sounds like you've got a pretty good understanding of how trauma healing works. But yeah, I would say it's a combination of those two. So Peter Levine, who developed somatic experiencing, talks very much, and this is some processes and techniques that we work with about helping trauma leave the body, is that when a traumatic event occurs, we store that memory within our body. So beyond our mind, and that's what a repressed memory is, really, is something that's perhaps not consciously remembered by the mind, but the body remembers that. And there's a book called Body Knows the Score as well that talks more in depth about that. And so when you're experiencing the ayahuasca or in the ceremony, then the healing songs, the spirits, the ayahuasca, the plant medicines that are all part of that whole experience that help do the healing with the curandero, the shaman, this helps that energy to leave the body so that it no longer needs to be stored within the body, so that that body can be free to experience something else. And in many cases, that being love, compassion, kindness, or something of a more positive nature than a trauma stored in the body. Simultaneously, as you're experiencing, this is what's really great about ayahuasca that can catalyze perhaps some of those other trauma healing modalities, perhaps like somatic experiencing, where you're going into the body and you're feeling it and releasing it. But with ayahuasca, because you're having such a in-depth experience of feeling it, going back to that place, and it's not like you're necessarily meditating to get there. It's like it's happening to you. You're back there. Then you can see it and experience it and feel it in a different way. And the intelligence of the plants speak with you, help you to understand, reframe, and then also rewire the brain so that perhaps that when you experience a similar situation again in the future, you're not having a traumatic response, but you've healed and then are able to react emotionally to something different in the present moment, if that makes sense.
This fall, as you get back into the swing of things, Bespoke Post has brand new seasonal Box of Awesome collections for guys guaranteed to upgrade your life. My favorite Box of Awesome box is the Weekender box, and I have to say this is one of the nicest bags I've ever owned. The special edition Weekender bag is durable, beautifully crafted, and built to last. It's a head turner and will be a conversation starter wherever you bring it, and trust me, you'll be bringing this bag everywhere you go. And given the current situation and climate, it's tough to get your hands on a very durable and beautifully crafted bag like this. Trust me, they are incredibly hard to come by, but the Weekender bag has you covered. But all of their boxes are incredible. Whether it's gear to upgrade your autumn craft beers or cozy threads for when the temperature dips, Bespoke Post only sends guys the best stuff every month. No matter what you're into, Box of Awesome has you covered. From style and grooming goods to barware, cooking tools, and outdoor gear, Box of Awesome has collections for every part of your life. I personally can't wait to check out the Alchemy box because I want to stock up my home with the pro-level cocktail wares they got. It really looks incredible. And the Flip box because it has a gorgeous folding knife made of Damascus steel, and the knife holder is beautiful as well. Wait till you see this thing. You're going to love it too. To get started, take the quiz at boxofawesome.com. Your answers actually help them pick the right box for you. They release new boxes every month across a ton of different categories. It's free to sign up and you can skip a month or cancel anytime. Each box costs only $45 but has over $70 worth of gear inside. So get 20% off your first monthly box when you sign up at boxofawesome.com and enter the code EliteMan at checkout. That's boxofawesome.com, code EliteMan for 20% off your first box. So I actually talked to Tucker Max about this too. He's done a lot of psychedelics and stuff like that, and he mentioned something. There's even like a phrase, you might know the phrase, but he mentioned some type of phrase where it's like, when you do it, it opens up a sort of a window, like a purgatory of sorts of opportunity to make changes. So it almost like it cleanses out the old past emotion for X amount of time. Maybe it's like, say, a week or two. And then you have like that period of time to then create like a new response to that prior emotion. And that's where you can like fix things. And then it sort of like closes though. If you don't make any changes in your life thereafter, you'll still get that problem, but you have like time to then change it and like solve whatever area of your life that was causing problems. And like, that's a part of the healing as well. Is that something you're familiar with?
Yeah, how we describe it here is we describe that processes are like automatic, semi-automatic, and manual experiences. So in an ayahuasca ceremony, you may have an automatic healing, perhaps of like a problem with your joint, and a pain is relieved, and then something gets cleaned out of the joint, and then you're like, oh my gosh, my shoulder is feeling better. And that's great. That's just an automatic healing. Something's clean, something in the muscle memory has changed, and your body's like, great, I don't feel pain there anymore. But then a semi-automatic experience may be like, oh, well, I experienced a clean out in my body, or I've like purged out this energy in my body. But then if you kind of just go and start drinking alcohol and doing drugs again straight away afterwards, then that healing's not going to be long lasting. But you may experience something like a semi-automatic of, okay, I've cleaned this out of my body. I think I'm going to eat healthier and I'm going to drink less. And then I'm going to create more of a healthy life for myself. So then that starts to implement those changes, and the body starts to heal itself because its natural healing environment is something that is optimum for its natural maintenance. And then a manual experience may be, oh, okay, I've seen that there's something wrong in my body. I should go to a doctor and get that checked out. Or I should go and speak to someone about it. Or perhaps it's my posture. I need to go and do some yoga or something like that to help implement my posture change, which would be more of a manual experience. So yeah, that's really what we describe as the integration process, that you can have really healing experiences in the ayahuasca ceremony, but for long-lasting change, it's going to be about making changes in your life that reflect that level of healing which you've experienced. And that's why I would say, in terms of the fear of like, okay, I'm going to go in and drink medicine, am I going to be prepared to make those changes that reflect who I really want to be? And that fear of letting go of who you're really not, because we identify so much with this character that we've built about ourselves.
Yeah, and all the masks we put on for so many years and worn, and yeah, it's a tough time to get past all that and kind of shed that old you to become somebody else. It's kind of a bit of a philosophical question, and I do want a moment before I forget, I do want to dive into the process of like what it's like from step one to step whatever, X to Z or XYZ, of like how the process works of getting through this experience, of what it looks like and what people would expect if they came in like to your retreat in Peru and were able to do this with you. I want to go through that process in a second, but I do want to ask you a philosophical type of question first. And that is, what do you actually think is going on when you're in this actual space, this sort of headspace of leaving what we see right now, and I'm looking at you doing the interview, and then what we're in, or what you're in when you've done these psychedelics, and what do you think is actually really happening, and how can you explain that to somebody like me who's never done that?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I would say the experience is like going to a spiritual hospital. So you go to a hospital with spiritual beings and plants that do lots of different work on your body, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And then, like if you were doing a detox or a cleanse, you come out on the other side clearer, healthier, and really more like who you really are. Because you think about a detox, you shed all those toxins and those things that are no longer useful for you. And then you can then put on new muscle mass with kind of healthy cells, with good food and those things. So like going to a spiritual hospital and then being able to reprogram the way the brain works in a way that perhaps is similar to like 20 years of psychotherapy that you could do, or 20 years of meditation, because of the plant medicine, because of the way it works, and the healing songs that enables you to make those changes, those like psychological and emotional changes, much more quicker and effective, and with a greater chance of you holding onto that new way of being. So it's really a change of the way that you perceive yourself and show up in the world through the experience of going through a spiritual hospital, getting your brain rewired, seeing yourself more clearly, and then becoming more of who you really are. And it's a